Perfect. All right. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. If you're watching the recording, maybe you're watching in Facebook. I will keep my eyes peeled if you have questions in Facebook. But I want to welcome LaShasta into our group this week, this month, and this month is all about stress. And so it was so lovely. LaShasta reached out to me with the workshop that I'm doing, and I asked her to join us in the membership, and she was graceful enough to join us. So, just to tell you a little bit about LaShasta, she is a woman living with purpose on purpose. She is a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, certified sleep science coach, certified mindfulness informed clinician level 1, and a certified clinical anxiety treatment professional. While she has over 15 years experience in the counseling field, LaShasta has considered herself a mental health advocate for over 20 years. She has a Bachelor of Social Work degree and a Master of Arts in Counseling degree from Prairie View A&M University, where she also became a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. LaShasta is the creator of the Am I Crazy talk show, the founder of In Details Academy, and the CEO of both I Choose Me and a counseling practice in League City, Texas, and LaShasta Bell LLC. When LaShasta takes off her mental health advocacy hat, she is traveling with family, friends, or alone, which she affectionately calls the Shecation. Combining her expertise and life story, LaShasta captures the hearts and minds of her audience and providing insight to help them start or continue their mental health, mental wellness journey. LaShasta lives in Texas with her husband and teenage boy's son, the Kevins. Welcome, LaShasta. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. Anytime I hear my bio, I'm like, oh my goodness, who did all that?
It's
Who
pretty
had time?
impressive. It's pretty impressive. I'm really grateful
Well,
that you're
well,
taking the time to join us.
absolutely. Well, thank you. And anytime that I can take a moment and speak to women in particular, but just those who are high achieving, and I believe for the most part, that's all of us. We're working toward goals, and sometimes we get so busy working toward those goals that we don't stop to realize that that we're actually producing already, and then our stress level just ticks until unfortunately there's a boom, and boom looks different for everyone. So I'm absolutely excited to be here and to share some insight on stress or not stress today. And I like to use that phrase because a lot of times we get in our heads about things. Either we're stressed to worry about past things that they're in the past, or future things that we've not gotten to yet. And that increases our anxiety and we worry. And next thing you know, we're having this physiological response in our bodies, or a psychological response in our minds to the stress. And so when we say not stress today, it it in itself, the title in and of itself, brings you back to the present moment. It brings you back to like right now today. So one of the things when I start to speak anywhere, speak, teach, train, whatever you want to call it, is I like to provide like some definitions of words that we'll all be using. Because when I say stress, I may mean one thing. When you say stress, you may mean another thing, et cetera, et cetera. I was literally doing a clubhouse last night because every Monday at 6:30 I'm on Clubhouse, and we talked about stress. And there was three of us that were on the stage, and each of us had a slightly different definition of stress. We're all mental health professionals, but we all saw it differently. And for me, one of the definitions I like to kind of hold on is when there are external things that is beyond our internal resources. So if we were just talking about the weather earlier and the impact of the weather, that's an external situation that sometimes we don't feel like we have the internal resources, or we don't have the internal resources, because you were mentioning about the impact of the change of the weather. And when it's wintertime for me, even in Texas, when we barely have a winter, and I know it's like, don't whine. It's like, I'm not, but where's the sun? There's an impact. And so I have to be intentional about how I move in the wintertime when there's less sun, or on days when it's gray. I have to be intentional. Otherwise, the everyday stress that happens, it starts to become outside of my resources to manage because of the impact of the weather. So That's the very broad term that I like to use. It also stresses a physiological thing. It ends up being symptoms. Um, in your body, headaches and backaches and not being able to sleep. Those are some symptoms that stress can bring on. And so remembering and having that awareness of what stress looks like for you and taking the time to really define it, because we'll use a word. Oh, I'm stressed out, or these kids got me stressed, or this my partner, or the coworker. And it's like, do they really have you stressed? Or are you choosing to be stressed based on their words and their behaviors? And a lot of times we choose to become stressed by external factors that simply some of them are beyond our control, but it's up to us to decide how we're actually going to respond to what's going on. And that's the amazing part about when you have that self-awareness. And I like the fact that we're doing more with the different months. And it's because I was talking to a colleague and he was like, well, I'm not really big on the awareness months because I feel like we should have awareness all year. And I'm like, you're right, but not all of us are on the same journey. And until we get there, having months that are significant of certain things is amazing, especially when it's in and around our mental health. And I don't know about you, but it seemed like for the last few years, it's become increasingly. And like when I looked up Stress Awareness Month, I'm like, oh, this was established in 1992. Where have I been? Like, where, you know, where have I been? Right? Like literally, because up until the last few years, I didn't know that it was a thing. And so, ladies, just understanding, having an increased awareness of what stress means for you, how you choose to define it, two, how it manifests itself. When For me, with stress, sometimes I carry it in my shoulders, sometimes it's my lower back. It used to be when I was much younger and had a harder time actually managing it, and less awareness of myself. I'll just be honest. I constantly had a headache. Just random, duh, just I would wake up with a headache. I would go to bed with a headache. I can remember being in my early 20s and being in college and having to be taken to the ER because the headache was so extreme that it was like a migraine and I was in tears. And not one person decided to tell me that it was connected to stress. They gave me a shot, the headache went away, and came back another day. Like literally, it didn't come back with the intensity, but I can remember being on my couch and studying and trying to study and just crying because my head was hurting so badly. And of course, there were so many other factors and things going on, but I did not know for years that that was one of the main ways that my body would tell me that my stress level was becoming unhealthy. Because let's be honest, like a little bit of stress is good. It keeps us sharp, it keeps us aware. I believe that those things that come in our lives that God has allowed us to experience, or higher being, whatever your belief system is, that it's all meant for positive if it's managed well. If I'm slightly stressed and I'm like, oh, let me check in with my eating, or how's my exercise routine, or am I getting enough water? Then that means that stress was a positive thing because it allowed me to check in with myself to make sure that I'm doing and giving my body and my mind what it needs. How's my sleep? However, most of us will let it go and go and go because there's telltale signs. Mine was a headache. Some other people may be their sleep is dysregulated. Some it may be your eating habits change. Some may mean you exercise less, or sometimes it's even you exercise more. Because let's understand this too. A little bit of something is good, but too much of something it can be detrimental. And so having that awareness and being intentional with the stress and the awareness can be a positive thing. And it's a delicate harmony that takes place. I don't like to use the word balance because I don't think a balance exists. One of my colleagues calls it the unicorn. Balance is a unicorn that we chase and chase and chase that we never find. However, harmony is something different. And last year, I was searching for a word so that I could avoid and I could stop using balance. And I took a trip to Belize and I went on a Granifia tour of the culture. And he started to talk about how they build and how they cook and how they do things, certain things under the moonlight and the harmony of human and earth. And I was like, that is it. That is what I've been seeking to replace this word balance. And that's with harmony. And that means having enough of what you need for life to be consistently well. Sometimes I need more exercise. Sometimes I need more sleep. As a matter of fact, when the pandemic happened, I started about 2, 3 months in as a mental health professional, I needed more sleep. And of course, I'm the professional sleep strategist because I started doing this with my life years ago. So I track my sleep. So at that time, I knew my sweet spot was about 7 hours. For 7 hours, I would still wake up like, oh, do we have to do this today? Or do I? And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Well, part of what happens when we're asleep, our hippocampus, it heals, it processes the emotions of the day, it processes the learning. So when the pandemic, once we were a few months in and realizing like we're gonna be here for a minute, my clients were more heavily impacted, which means I'm absorbing more of their emotions and feelings, which means I now need to sleep longer so my brain has more time to process. So I completely adjusted my schedule, and thank goodness I could, to start later in the morning so that I had an opportunity to sleep more. But I had to be okay with that. And I think as women, a lot of times we know what we need to lower our stress, we know what we need to de stress. We just won't give ourselves permission to do so. And it's big, it's a big deal. Because if we start to give ourselves permission to do what we need, then we can do more of what we want and be really good at it. So, ladies, I want you to take a moment and write yourself a permission slip, a physical permission slip. I don't know, I'm going to age myself in a minute, but just like you used to get a little hall pass and it would say your name and the date and where you're going and what time. And sometimes it would even tell you what time you needed to return. You be as detailed as you want with your permission slip. But I encourage you, ladies, to physically create a permission slip. I'm not saying like use electronic device. No, no, no. I need you to write it down. It's a connecting thing that takes place in the brain when we physically write. And decide what you're going to give yourself permission to do. Because most of us have a whole list of things that we know we've been withholding from ourselves because we're too busy to get it done or to give ourselves permission. So I want you to think about just one way you can give yourself permission to do what you need to do for you. Just one. And when you do that, and write the date, write the time, because now you're prioritizing yourself and you're putting yourself on your calendar. And that's important to do. When I was reading, and I forgot the book, Michelle Obama's book, and she talked about putting yourself on your calendar first. Now I know that's a big ask, and we just met each other, and you might not be ready to hear that. So I'm just gonna throw it out there, just in case you want to chew on it. But even if you're not ready to put yourself on your calendar first, try just putting yourself on your calendar. Period. Somewhere. Steal back some of the time that you have given away. Like steal it like a thief in the night. Like just grab it back with no apologies, no guilt, no shame, and then utilize that time and you write your permission slip from there. Because when we talk about de-stress, there's a 100 million different ways. I even have an ebook with an essential oil blend called the Tension Release Bundle that gives you 8 steps. And I could go over those, but you can Google those too. Yeah, we can dance it out, we can exercise, But before you can do any of those, you have to have a mindset shift. You have to be willing to make yourself important because no one else is. By human nature, we are all, most of us, I'm saying, everybody else, not the women. Because if we were, this wouldn't be the case. We wouldn't be in this situation. But their agenda is important. And there's no one in your life that's really going to tell you to pause and stop and take time for yourself unless you've done everything they want you to do first. I mean, just take a moment and think about it. Sometimes our partners, our spouses, our kids, our parents will say, or even our coworkers and colleagues may say, you need to take some time for yourself. But that's literally after you've done everything that they needed you to do or they wanted you to do. So being sure to decide to do it for you first, because then all of the people that you care for in your life will get a better version of you.
Part Sorry, can I just I love everything you're saying, and what comes up for me in that being like put I sometimes like I work with women, and what I always find is that they are the ones who struggle to put themselves first. Like
Hmm.
they find the reasons of who else they need to take care of first. I need to do this first and this, and it's like that mindset shift that you talked about is so vitally important because it's almost like they're conditioned to put everybody else's needs first, that they actually don't even shift into thinking. It's like nobody even has to say, I need you to do this. They just automatically have a running list of what they need to do for everybody before they'll put themselves on the calendar, or they'll move. Right? It's like put it in the calendar and then they're like, move it because, oh, this came up for so and so. I've got to do that now. That's just sort of what came in when you were talking.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Even on the panel on yesterday, one of the ladies, and like I said, we were all mental health professionals. She was just, I was talking about making time and space, and she was just like, I don't know that I could do that. I have my adult daughter that works for me that still does this, and this, and I have my mom, and I just don't know that I can because everybody needs me. And I had to say, we need to take a moment to decide what is need and what is want. Because you're right, we will say, oh, they need me to do this and do this and do that. And I have a son that's 17 years old. There are some things that he still needs from me. There are some things that I want him to need from me. And then there are some things he wants to have from me. And it's up to me to differentiate and create a list because I'm not saying that his want list and what I want him to need me for does not come into play. What I'm saying is that it comes into play when I've addressed me first. And then I can address his needs and how I want him to need me and what he wants from me. And I think that that's vital to understand. Like your 8-year old kid doesn't need you to make his lunch. He or she is capable of making their own lunch if you choose to take time to teach them, because it also helps to develop autonomy. And that's one thing that kids lack tremendously these days is autonomy, which also then means that they end up lacking resiliency, which also then means they end up having a harder time managing their emotions and their feelings, and the things that come in their life seem a whole lot more stressful because they have been protected for so long and lack the ability of knowing, oh, let me problem solve, let me figure this out for myself, or let me try to problem solve. And when I can't, let me take it to a parent. So that's the difference. Yes, you may want to make their lunch every day. Great. Absolutely. And that's okay to do it. But if it means that you have no time for yourself in the morning, that you're rushing, that you're putting your makeup on in the car, or not styling your hair the way you want it to be, if it's just pulled back, not brushed, not, then that's the whole problem. Now, if you have time for everything, that's beautiful. Literally, I get up in the morning just to see my son off. I almost cried this morning because I read an email before I did my morning routine, and it said something about senior portraits. And I'm like, why are they sending me this? And then I remembered he's going into his senior year. That's why. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when I can't wake up and see him off in the morning? I don't make his breakfast or lunch every day, every now and then, because that's a want. He's 17. He's very capable. But I do wake up because seeing him off brings me joy and it brings me pleasure. So it's more for me than for him. Because at 17, he probably could care less if I wake up and say good morning to him and saw him off for his day. And so that's the difference when we talk about prioritizing ourselves and ways to manage our stress. That's going to be the key thing. Because if you can't see you, you can't do anything with your stress. Like if you literally look at your life and you cannot see yourself, then how are you supposed to manage stress and worry, sleep dysregularities, eating habits, weight loss, weight gain? None of that is possible when you don't see who you are or have yourself on your calendar. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Most of the time it is us. We're our number one critic. We're also sometimes our number one enemy. And it takes a mindset shift. Do we have any questions?
Um, One question is, how can you, like, what do you say to help someone make that mindset shift?
What do I say? Steal your time back. Take a moment and look at your day and think of and just kind of go through it. I told the women that I work with, I often say, okay, go through your day for me from top to bottom. And we start to identify times and spaces that are less difficult to take that time back
Okay.
and putting things in that brings them joy. Playlists, podcasts, audiobooks. The commute back and forth to work used to be a big thing. Now there's no commute back and forth for work for a lot of us. But then it's like, okay, go ahead and act like you're commuting, just like you did before. Take that 20 minutes, go outside, go to a private place, and start to do things for yourself. So start with a list of what your day looks like, and then start with a list of, I like to call it your rest bank or your relaxation bank. Start building it up just with a list of things. For me, one thing I enjoy, I'm a yelper. So I enjoy finding new restaurants. And what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll bookmark new restaurants. So then when I want a new lunch experience, I already have the restaurant. I just pull it up and I go to the restaurant. I also like indulging in like National Pizza Month and Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. And so when I know those things are coming up, I put it on the calendar because that's something for me. And then I can go and find a great chocolate chip cookie. Now, I'm not encouraging you to eat your feelings or anything like that. That's just, I'm a foodie, and that's part of what I enjoy. So you can schedule ahead the things that you want to do from your rest and relaxation bank, or you can just start by creating one. And some women are go like, because I had this experience myself. I was a elementary school counselor, and in Texas we have Red Ribbon Week, which is around drug awareness and being drug free. And as a school counselor, we do like these little crazy sock day, crazy hair day. We're in charge of creating those days for the week. And so I was doing dress as your favorite hobby. And in that moment, I stopped and I was like, LaShasta, what is your favorite hobby or hobbies? How are you going to dress? And literally, ladies, like a knot, a lump formed in my throat. I'm at work about to cry because while I can think of the things I enjoy, I could not recall the last time I had done any of them. And that was like my wake up call of, you are so busy minding everyone else's business that your business is falling apart. And so I had to make a conscious decision that day. And that was back in 2013, 2014. That my company name, I Choose Me, was a whole journey. So it used to be LaShasta Bell LPC. Used to be the name of the company. But after embarking on that journey for several years of understanding how to choose me and how to prioritize me, which then decreased my anxiety, my stress, improved my sleep, I was like, oh my God, I want everybody to do this. I want everybody to heal for me and live for me, like live for themselves and heal for themselves. And so sometimes it means revisiting old hobbies, and sometimes it means exploring new hobbies. So for me back then, I simply just revisit some old hobbies like rollerblading. I used to love the rollerblade. I would have them in my car. And if my kid had football practice, I would rollerblade in the parking lot. Who cares who sees me and judge me? They judge Jesus. I don't care. So I would just skate. And every now and then I would take a moment and watch him practice and go, yay, good job, good job. And then I'd go back to skating. So that was fun for me. That was exercise for me. It was outside, it was in the sun. There were so many things that took place. Now, granted, about 10, 15 years later, I tried to buy them rollerblades again, and it was like, nah, sis, not that. Find something else. You may need roller skates now, not rollerblades. So that's what I would say for those who are looking for that mindset shift. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's something that happens step by step and with intentionality, and it starts with stealing back your time and not being guilty, not being ashamed, not being embarrassed by it. Spend an extra 2, 3 minutes in the bathroom, and don't let your kids or your spouse interrupt you. When they say something, go up. Can't hear you. I'm in the shower. Up. I would love to attend to what you're saying right now, but I can't because I'm my focus is somewhere else. And they start to know. You start to set those boundaries around your space and around your time because time boundaries is a real thing too. I have some women go, well, I can't go to the restroom without touching my 3 year old or my 5 year old or the 25-year old knocking on the door. Well, if you tell them I can't hear you, give me 5 minutes, then if they want to be heard, they're going to give you 5 minutes. Because the reason they're knocking at the door is because they want your attention and they want your time. But if you sit there and talk to them through the door and give them what they need, guess what? They're going to keep coming back to the door.
So, one thing that you said I just would love, because I'm wondering if this is coming up in anyone who's watching's mind, is the guilt. So, because of what I heard you say was that it was a journey for you to come back to stealing back your time. So, if someone is having that guilt and it's that play between going back to the way they were, any suggestions to support them in breathing through that, or any, like, what would you say would to help them continue moving forward to making time for themselves?
Okay, absolutely. Yes. Guilt and shame comes up a lot for us women when we're trying to prioritize ourselves because for a lot of us culturally we were taught not to, or religiously we were taught not to. So some way, space and place, we were taught that we're not important enough to be at the top, that we have to be at the bottom. And so that guilt comes up. And what I like to have the clients I work with ask themselves is, what do I believe I'm doing wrong? Am I doing something criminal? And really sit and answer those questions because when we explore the rationale behind the emotion, then we can decide if the rationale is rational or irrational. But a lot of times we'll just sit with the emotion and allow it to dictate our behavior. So we never allow ourselves to go to left brain where logic is happening. We stay in the right brain and we make a decision from the right brain. And of course, the decision is going to be whatever it is that will allow me to move away from the guilt because it feels uncomfortable rather than having a moment and saying, okay, hmm, what do I believe I'm doing wrong? Well, I'm putting myself first. And instead of baking cookies for the third time this month for the class, I'm choosing instead to go have lunch with a friend. Okay, I'm doing nothing wrong because I haven't had lunch with this friend in 10 years and they've had cookies twice this month already. Someone else surely can make them cookies, or the kids will be okay if they don't have cookies for the third time, even if they enjoy mine the most. We get to go through that, but you have to give yourself a moment to go from right brain to left brain. The book Emotional Intelligence says it takes about a nanosecond for that to take place. And I usually like to have my clients pose a question to themselves that help with that bridge in that nanosecond from right brain to left brain where logic can take place.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. I like when I work with clients, I think about it as, let's challenge that thought. Let's get curious. Where's that coming from? And play with it a little just to see if that can help them unravel what's holding them back.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Get curious, ask questions, It's all in that same space of do what you got to do to move away from the emotions, sis, because them emotions are fleeting. They go up and down, as they are designed to do. But it's not best practice for us to make a decision, especially when we're creating a mindset shift or a lifestyle change. It's not best practice to make a decision from that emotional place. Because, of course, emotions are going to change as you're changing behaviors, as you're setting boundaries. And that's a whole nother talk and a whole nother conversation around boundaries, simply because other people don't like them. And but other people may not like my glasses, but I'm still gonna wear 'em, and all of us can think of some things in our lives that way. Somebody didn't like when you got your hair cut, but you cut it anyway. So if we really take a moment and move away from the emotions when we're setting those boundaries and we're taking back our time and shifting mindset, we would realize I've done this before. I've gone against what someone else thought of me or someone else's feelings to prioritize mine. We do it in pockets and we do it in moments and spaces, and we don't give ourselves credit for doing it. So then when it's time to shift the mindset to put ourselves on our calendar to decrease our stress, we feel like it's something brand new. And it's like, no, you've done it before. You just have to take a moment and realize what you really did. And that's where it comes with that awareness and that intentionality.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
You're
amazing.
welcome.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
like so many great tips and really helping the women in the group and just to support themselves and to put themselves first, which is it's vital. And I believe you said during your talk that not only will they benefit, but those who love them will benefit, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. One of the harder things for me to do was to realize I needed time alone.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most difficult of all changes. I grew up with a single parent, four kids. I was next to the oldest. It became points in time in life where I was the oldest, even though my brother is alive and well, but all of the responsibility fell on me. And I would experience like these spaces and times of irritability, like just everything would get on my nerves, so to speak. And after taking that time to really choose me and explore, I was able to realize it was because I didn't have much time alone. There was always somebody needed something from me, or it was always something I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to a place that I was able to articulate to my husband that I need to go for a couple days, like by myself, where I don't have to ask anybody else what they want for dinner. I don't have to wake up at a certain point in time to accommodate anyone. I can just be LaShasta, the LaShasta that I may have never been before because I've carried the weight of responsibility since I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was more mature and more responsible, people just felt like, give me more responsibility. And I took it and wore it as a badge of honor a lot of times. And so that was the hardest thing for me to to understand and give myself permission to communicate. So I did it. It was like 3 days, 2 nights, something like that. Traveled by myself. It was so amazing. Ladies, if you've never traveled by yourself, just please do. Even if it's like down the street, round the corner, 30 minutes away from the house, get a hotel overnight. I'm just saying, like, because some of us are fearful of traveling by ourselves, and that's just a whole nother thing. And so after I did it once, I was like, oh my gosh. And apparently I came back pretty amazing because when the irritability would start to come up again, my Kevins, as I call them, would be like, when are you going on your trip by yourself? When your she what is it? Your cation? Uh, when you doing is it time? It's probably about that time. So they they started to help me to hold myself accountable to give myself what I needed because they saw a different me, a better version of me when I returned. And so they're okay with me going. They survive, they thrive, and when I come back, they embrace me being back and being refreshed and being renewed. So it gets to the point, ladies, where the people around you who love and care about you and really want you to be the best version of yourself, they'll hold you accountable for doing the things that make you the best version of yourself. If I'm not working out like I should and my anxiety is on 200, the people in my house will be like, you want to go for a walk? Like, aren't you gonna get your mile in? Literally, I was talking to my husband, like, I gotta go walk my mile or whatever. And I get home and I take my shoes off, and he's like, why are you taking your shoes off? Then you say you was going to walk your mile. I was like, you're right. Let me put these shoes back on and go. And it's a beautiful thing to have people who love you enough to make sure you love yourself enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, thank you. That I love your story about your shecation. I think that's like inspiring for everyone to try and go and do some traveling on their own to just be with themselves. So thank you. I just am so grateful
You're
that you
welcome.
joined in the membership and you shared your wisdom. And I have all of your contact information if anyone wants to follow you and all of the amazing things that you're doing so that they can stay in touch with you. And it's all in the membership if you're looking for it. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll make sure that you can find it. But it's right in where I'm going to upload this video. So, is there anything else you want to share, LaShasta?
And I'm just happy and excited that you allowed me to join in the space in the membership. One thing that may be there or may not be there because I just completed it and I'm so excited. My clients have been telling me for years, my mental health clients, like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And so finally I have. And that's I've completed my first content course that is do it yourself, go at your own pace called Working the Worry. And so I was just like super amazed at look at this. We put it all together and it's basically a clinically proven, and I say clinically proven because I worked with clients since 2016 with these 4 steps of decreasing their worry, their anxiety, and their stress and making it actually work for them, which is how it's designed to be in our lives. And so that when the ladies go to inthedetailsacademy.com, they'll find it there. And depending on when they're catching the replay, if they put 25 off, it'll give them 25% off the course. So it's not just me talking module after module, it's also worksheets, it's also built in time where you can do the work. Because one thing I don't like is when I'm doing an online course and it says it's 30 minutes, but then it's 30 minutes and you want me to spend 15 minutes doing something else. And it's like, could you have just said 45? Because I could have set 45 minutes aside. And so I was intentional about including the time into the modules to do the activities, to do the work, so that the participants don't disconnect and go, oh, I only had 15 minutes, and then they never do the work. Because, of course, as you know, the way things get better and the way we move to where we want to be is by doing the work. So I think that may be the only thing that probably wasn't included. Um, I'm on Clubhouse every Monday at 6:30 Central Time, and Book Busy and Unfulfilled is the name of the room. If you follow me on Clubhouse, you'll get a notification whenever I hit the stage. And we just talk real talk, just like we're doing here about the woes. But the thing is, the ladies can come on stage, they can ask questions, they can drop their questions and their comments in the chat. It's super interactive. And we're just really there to move you from book busy and unfulfilled to book busy and productive.
Amazing. I'm gonna follow you. You'll be one of my first followers on Clubhouse. I haven't quite got into that yet. I'm still working on it, so that inspires me to step out. Like that
Oh,
feels like it's
good.
pushing an edge for me for some reason. So,
it's
um,
it's it's different. I was there on Clubhouse. I've been there for 2 years, but I can tell you it wasn't until recently that I really started to get into Clubhouse. And it's just about checking just a tip of checking the different rooms and the temperature so that you're not overwhelmed with information or that you're not misinformed. And I think that's part of what happens. People go in different rooms and it's like, oh my gosh. And it ends up being like, I'm just going to be done with it. But you can schedule times and follow certain people and get notifications when they're speaking and then enjoy it that way.
yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Be my entrance into Clubhouse so I
Absolutely.
can feel more comfortable with it.
Yay! Well, look, I'm gonna send you an email Sunday or Monday morning and be like, "Don't forget, I'll see you Monday." But yes, I just thank you for the opportunity. It was great. I hope to be in touch more. I hope to, get to meet some of the ladies that's in the membership at some point in time, and so that we can just all thrive together.
Yeah. Thank you so much, LaShasta. You're such a beautiful soul. I appreciate everything that
Well,
you're doing
thank you.
in this world. Have the most amazing day.
Well, thank you. You do the same.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.